From Tiger Stadium here on a cold Saturday night, and we don't often get to say that down here in Louisiana, but it's football weather.
It's been the first one this year that it's been inarguably chilly and been pretty brisk. But Tigers come out and handle their business a little bit better than what we've seen the previous 3 weeks. I think in all areas you can probably say LSU's probably put their best foot forward since the first half of that A&M game. I think the first. Really, for 4 quarters, I thought that this was a pretty well-rounded performance as a whole.
Yeah, it wasn't, I won't say drama-free, but look, you got to heads up. This is a different Vanderbilt team than years past. It's a pesky Vanderbilt team. They wanted to control the clock. They did just that. But Glenn, when you kind of look at it, I mean,
and it's an LSU team that was struggling coming in.
Yeah.
So like you knew there were going to be some kind of not perfect play.
Yeah.
And certainly you saw that with some of the explosives that LSU gave up on defense and. Offense had the one drive where they just couldn't cap off on a touchdown. But look, overall, you got some really great performances from a lot of your veteran, older players, guys that you were hoping would kind of going into the week. I think a lot of us thought that this was going to be a game where we're going to really learn a lot about the culture of this team and just kind of how far off the deep end has it gotten this year. And I think the veterans this week, and at least all the guys who we've talked to, whether it was after the game tonight or earlier in the week, they really set the tone this week early on and said this is enough's enough, and we got to start winning these games here. And they play with a lot more discipline, a lot more focus, I thought, overall tonight.
Yeah, Braden Swinson talked a little bit about that post game in the sense of at some point you have to take pride in your craft, and at some point it's personal. And he felt like for a lot of guys, the 3-game losing streak was a little bit personal. And look, we had heard from a lot of guys. I mean, Nussmeier had said this. Many guys said this. They not really, losing 3 straight is not something they had done. They're all very successful, high school players making the jump to the college level. So this was some new territory for a lot of the guys. And Glenn, I think like when you kind of just look at it as a whole, like, okay, this team is who they are, and they have deficiencies. They have, they're not perfect by any means. But the big thing I would say is that they just found a way. And we like to sit here post-game amongst the chilly weather here. It's much easier to talk about a win when you go through the tough things as it is. And they just needed to get this one out of the way, get a win in the column, and get ready for, by the time you're watching this, you know that Oklahoma smacked around Alabama. That's going to be a big game next week.
Yeah, look, clean offense was kind of my biggest takeaway on that side of the ball. They didn't turn the ball over. They were very limited on their penalties tonight. They didn't have a whole lot of negative plays, especially in the run game. I thought Josh Williams really set the tempo early in this thing and had the 2 20-yard-plus rushing touchdowns in the first half. Was a very consistent source of kind of moving the chains for LSU tonight. And you got a really, I think, just overall complimentary performance, which is something that we've been looking for this team for really most of the season, but certainly over the last month. And Nussmeier, I thought, put on a passing clinic at times. I think he can be all right. I think he can be an all right player. And I know that it's only human nature for a lot of fans and even people that cover him closely, and to kind of wonder about what exactly he could be as a quarterback. And I think he reminded us tonight that when he's got it locked and loaded, when he's focused and hitting his reads and moving the offense, and he can be a very dynamic player in this conference. And I thought he did a really nice job tonight of just kind of keeping things under control, taking the plays when they were there. He put the ball in a couple of compromising positions. There were a couple of touchdown passes that maybe he probably, or touchdown attempts that maybe he wouldn't want to try as he continues to evolve as a player. But he also threw a couple of dimes. That one in the corner there, the Aaron Anderson, that wasn't called a touchdown.
NFL throw.
NFL throw. And then on the very next drive, he hits, I believe it was C.J. Daniels on a nice little comeback route there that kind of extended the drive. And when Vanderbilt goes down and ties or scores and makes it a 24-17 ball game, you want to see the offense respond with a nice long drive of their own. And not only do they do that, but they run the clock out. They chew up the final 5:37 of the clock, and I think a lot of that had to do with the play of Garrett Nussmeier, certainly Josh Williams, and kudos to the offensive line up front. I think they had probably their best game however long, probably 4 or 5 weeks. It's been a while. But they were able to lock in, even still down Garrett Dellinger, and find some success up front too.
Offensively, as you mentioned, Josh Williams, a really nice performance from him tonight. I felt like he kind of ran, for lack of better words, ran a little bit pissed off and wanted to prove a point. And he did that to the younger players, Brian Kelly said, all throughout the week. Let's talk defense, man, because, it started out where I think everyone in the press box was like, oh, here we go again. But I mentioned that to Whit Weeks, and he said, have to make moments like that an outlier in a game and not the norm. He said too often we've kind of sat there and we've allowed that to snowball. This week, they pulled back on that road, Glen, and they did it quickly, they did it effectively, and they stopped an offense that, yeah, they don't light the world on fire, Vanderbilt, but they're very efficient in what they do. And so you have to give credit to LSU's defense.
Yeah, and very capable. I mean, they hung 40 up on Alabama. They took Texas down to the wire. And yeah, I mean, look, this is and what have we said for so long now, that LSU just can't stop running quarterbacks? I mean, Diego Pavia is probably one of the more mobile quarterbacks in the conference, and I think he had around 40 yards rushing tonight. They did a really nice job whenever they were doing read option of kind of sticking with him, and I just thought it was a great performance from the edge rushers tonight. I thought Savion Jones, Braden Swinson, Whit Weeks coming up the middle, Wes Weeks had some really nice breakthroughs there. That's kind of your look at linebacker next year. I think your early look at linebacker. So I thought that those guys in the front seven really set the tone, but particularly Savion and Braden Swinson. I think they had 8 quarterback hurries tonight. Now, they didn't get to Pavia all the time, but they flustered him. They made him throw balls that he probably, if he had more time, had to throw a lot away, but also threw some in the dirt, and probably because of the pressure that he was facing. So just a really solid performance. I think they forced 5 or 6 punts, and then they had the turnover on downs. They had the one big busted play there in the first quarter, and there were a couple more explosives that led to touchdowns. That 140-yarder that led to that last touchdown in the third or fourth quarter, probably fourth quarter, huh? The fourth quarter. It was the fourth quarter touchdown. Yeah, when they cut it down to 24-17. So certainly not perfect, but I think a lot better than what they have been. And look, I thought that they did some really nice things tonight in the secondary as well. As Alexander, I thought, had another nice game. Didn't really give up a whole ton, and it's just trying to build something kind of momentum-wise for this group that's going to be losing a lot of these veteran players. You got a good chance to see Devon Keys tonight. He played a good bit, so there's I think there's a lot of room for optimism here as we head into the final 2 weeks and into this final game against Oklahoma.
One final thing I want to talk about, and I'll kind of flesh this out, in the next coming hours, in terms of just the defensive look. And Kelly just said he didn't want to talk a lot about scheme, but Whit Weeks went into the idea they've kind of moved to a little bit of a 4-3, and he said against the run, which we have struggled against, it helps to have that bigger body. Devon Keys has been a big piece of that. Obviously, West Weeks, Greg Penn. I know it's too late. You can't go back to what happened a couple weeks ago against Alabama, but it does feel like they're trying to find something. Obviously, fans can be upset about the fact that it's taken this long. But in all seriousness, Glenn, we'll end it right here. Where do you go from here? You've got a team in Oklahoma that's going to be riding high after a massive win in their first year in the SEC. They just clinched bowl eligibility. But your thoughts, you got to end this season on a high note. And beating Oklahoma at home on a last Saturday night here at Tiger Stadium, I don't think there's any other way you need to finish it up than winning.
Yeah, just play clean football. I mean, I think that's at the end of the day. What LSU's really struggled at this year is closing games, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they just kind of shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, the Alabama game was a blowout. That was just an unmatched team right there, disaster of a game. But all these other games, it's been really LSU that's cost themselves. Yeah. I just think if you're a fan, if you're a player on this team, if you're a coach, you just want to go out there and show that you can, put some of these adverse situations you can put yourself in behind you and just play clean football. And I think that's probably the biggest thing for me that I want to see against Oklahoma. You mentioned the fact that they just knocked off Alabama and are going to be riding high. I think it's going to be extremely important for LSU to come out again very disciplined and focused, and certainly you could have made an argument to the contrary with the way that this thing started 2 minutes in. But at the same time, LSU was able to respond with a touchdown. They get a couple punts. They're able to settle into the game nicely, and you want to see more of that going forward. And I think that if you can set that tone against Oklahoma, it gives you a little bit more confidence, a little bit more of yourself feeling good about just kind of how the season ends, and all the negativity that's been around this program. Boy, did they need this tonight. They needed a win. They needed to find something to hang their hats on, and they did the job, and they did enough to get it done tonight.
Yeah, and then kind of wrapping it up here, like you mentioned, they obviously have that date against Oklahoma next weekend, and it's going to be a loaded next couple of days. We hope, obviously, by the time we talk to you again, it'll probably be around the Thanksgiving holiday, so we hope all of you have a great Thanksgiving. And look, one more game here at home, then you get the bowl game. Still a lot to play for, and if you don't think these games matter, then they do, in terms of recruiting, in terms of a lot of different things. So he is Glen West. My name is Bryce Koon. We will catch you next time. The final score: LSU wins over Vanderbilt 24-17.